Hey there, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something absolutely crucial, the profound mechanics of human connection. We're using some incredibly powerful insights from David Brooks. We spend our entire lives surrounded by people, right? Yet so many of us walk around feeling fundamentally misunderstood or honestly entirely invisible. So we're going to break down the exact art and science of how to change that. But first, I want you to really think about this for a second. When was the last time you felt truly seen by another person, like completely understood? It is such a fundamental human desire, but let's be real, it's something we often struggle deeply to actually fulfill in our day-to-day lives. Well, to tackle this, we're drawing our blueprint directly from David Brooks' book, How to Know a Person. This text is going to show us how to master the art of seeing others deeply and, as a result, being deeply seen yourself. And the best part? As Brooks points out, this isn't just some innate trait you're either lucky enough to be born with or you're not. It is a vital social and moral skill, and it can absolutely be cultivated. Okay, here is our roadmap for today. First, the crisis of disconnection. 2, illuminators versus diminishers. 3, the art of asking. 4, listening out loud. And 5, building a connected world. Let's get right into it. Section 1, the crisis of disconnection, an epidemic of blindness. So we find ourselves in this wild modern paradox. Technology gives us the illusion of infinite connection, right? But it leaves us completely emotionally isolated. Look at this observation from Brooks. The thing we need most is relationships. The thing we seem to suck at most is relationships. It's a massive contradiction. And this inability to connect has actually fueled a literal epidemic of blindness, driving some really alarming rises in depression, suicide, and widespread distrust across our society. Bill Gates actually echoed this exact sentiment when he reviewed Brooks' work. Gates observed that this kind of social unraveling ends up replacing genuine connection with a highly toxic substitute. Basically, instead of trying to understand one another, people get this superficial satisfaction from simply yelling at those they disagree with. We're talking at each other, not with each other. Moving to section 2, illuminators versus diminishers. Who are you? To actually solve this crisis, we've got to look closely at the two primary ways people behave in everyday interactions. Brooks basically categorizes us into two distinct camps. The first camp is what he calls an illuminator. An illuminator is someone with this persistent, genuine curiosity about other people. They literally shine the brightness of their care onto someone else, and by doing that, they make that person feel bigger, deeper, respected, and just totally lit up. The contrast here is super fascinating. You have your illuminators, who masterfully foster a two-way exchange of understanding. And then on the flip side, you have diminishers. Diminishers treat conversations like one-way lectures. Brooks uses this incredibly relatable phrase for this, the bore bomb. You know exactly what this is. It's when someone traps you and just drops this massive one-sided lecture on you, completely oblivious to whether or not you even care. And hey, nobody is immune to being a diminisher. Even Bill Gates shared this highly self-deprecating story, admitting he's been totally guilty of dropping bore bombs about the history of fertilizer, without ever stopping to check if the person across from him was actually interested. It's just a great, funny reminder of how easily any of us can slip into lecturing rather than conversing. Which brings us to section 3, the art of asking, getting into narrative mode. So how do we actually become an illuminator? Well, it starts by fundamentally changing the types of questions we ask. You literally need to shift the conversation out of argument mode and into narrative mode. Meaning, instead of asking, "What do you think about this issue?" which instantly forces people to defend their opinions, you simply ask, "How did you come to believe that?" This one simple shift invites a story. It brings out a much deeper, more authentic response because, honestly, people are inherently more accurate and revealing when they're talking about themselves through a narrative. There's an incredible anecdote in the source material that proves this perfectly. A researcher was organizing a focus group for grocery stores. Instead of asking the generic, boring question, "Why do you go to the store late at night?" she asked for a narrative. She said, "Tell me about the last time you went to a grocery store after 11 p.m. One woman gave this brilliantly candid reply, "I smoked a joint and I needed a menage a trois with me, Ben, and Jerry." Right? That specific narrative question completely bypassed a generic answer and gave us this hilarious, authentic glimpse into her actual life. But get this, here is a startling data point. According to the research, only about 30 to 40% of humanity are actually question askers. The rest, they might be perfectly nice people, but they just aren't actively curious about you. So simply making the choice to be someone who asks open-ended questions puts you in a rare minority. It is literally one of the fastest, most effective ways to communicate deep respect to another human being.
All right, section 4, listening out loud, the mechanics of accompaniment.
Now, once you actually ask that brilliant open-ended question, your job is not done. You've got to practice what Brooks calls loud listening. This ties into this beautiful concept called accompaniment. Accompaniment is an entirely other-centered way of moving through life. It literally means walking alongside others with intentionality, empathy, and care. And to accompany someone in a conversation, you have to be listening so actively, with such intense focus, that you are practically burning calories while doing it. To actually pull this off, you can use a highly actionable blueprint called the SLANT method. It stands for sit up, lean forward, ask questions, nod, and track the speaker. Doing this ensures your entire body language is projecting total engagement. You aren't just hearing them, you are physically showing them without a doubt that they are the center of your attention. And if you want to take it even a step further, try the looping technique. This is where you pause and paraphrase the speaker's point back to them, just to ensure you understood it correctly. This guarantees the speaker feels completely, undeniably heard before you even think about moving on to your own perspective. It is also an incredibly safe, respectful way to figure out the core values hiding underneath any practical disagreements you guys might be having. You know, there's this beautiful linguistic coincidence here that's worth remembering. The words silent and listen share the exact same 6 letters. It's a really profound reminder that silence, patience, and just giving people the floor, that is the absolute bedrock of deep listening. Finally, section 5, building a connected world, the bigger picture. When we zoom out for a second, we can see how these individual conversational habits, the active listening, the narrative questions, the slant method, how they can actually transform our broader society. Because this craft of seeing people, it totally transcends borders and cultures. In Korean, for example, there's the concept of nunchi, which is the ability to be acutely sensitive to other people's moods and thoughts. In German, they have Herrensbildung, which means training the heart to see the full humanity in another person. So this isn't just some quick communication hack. It is a universal moral mission to truly understand one another. When we actively resist reducing people to mere labels or political stereotypes and view them instead as whole, complex people with dignity and worth, incredible things happen. For one thing, it helps draw out the hidden gifts of the underconfident people in our workplaces and communities. And on a much larger scale, Brooks argues that this is the exact tool required to bridge our deepest societal and political divides. You simply cannot solve a social unraveling without first restoring basic empathy. Which brings us to Brooks' most powerful, most resonant idea of all. Curiosity is an act of love. When you choose to be persistently curious about another person, when you actively work to pull their story out of them and make them feel truly seen, you aren't just being polite. You are performing an absolute act of love. So I want to leave you with this provocative challenge today. Look at the people in your life, your colleagues, your family, the person making your coffee. Who will you illuminate today? Take these tools, ditch the argument mode, leave the bore bombs behind, and completely transform an interaction today. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep asking great questions.